Hi there, I'm IELTS Master Lee, and this video lesson is on IELTS Writing Task 1, how to accurately analyze charts, maps, and process diagrams. First, let's look at the Writing Task 1 problem and its solution. The problem is, analyzing charts, maps, and process diagrams is hard. It really is. It's difficult. Test takers only have 20 minutes to analyze accurately, plan, and write. And of course, check if you have time. So, analyzing accurately, analyzing the things quickly and accurately is very, very difficult. The solution for this is to focus on your weak area and practice it. In this case, if you have trouble with analysis, you need to practice analyzing. Just like athletes who play sports practice the area of their sport they have difficulty with, you need to practice just the area you have difficulty with, and then you can grow and practice the whole task. But for now, we're just going to practice analyzing, practice analysis of these charts and maps and process diagrams. In this video, you'll learn how to practice analyzing charts, maps, and process diagrams one by one. Each part will also include an example analysis. So first, let's look at charts. This chart analysis question list. When you're practicing analyzing charts, you can use this question list to help you analyze it correctly. In the beginning, you should look at all the questions on the list. But as you practice more, you can remember the process for analyzing these charts and maps and process diagrams, and you don't need the question list as much. But to get started, let's look through these questions. First, what kind of data is being shown? For line or bar charts, what are the axes? If you look at this really small line chart on the right, the axes are the lines on the left side, this up and down line, and the line on the bottom of it, the right and left line. Usually, the up and down axis is the number of something, how many. For example, how many dollars or what percentage of people. And then the bottom line is usually time. Not always, but usually some kind of time on a line graph like this. Now, if you have a table, then you could ask yourself, what are the columns or rows? And what kind of data is being shown by the columns or rows? Next, you'll ask, what are the units of measurement? For example, the amount, the percentage, the age, is it in millions, is it in thousands? Very important stuff, because if you get this wrong, your task achievement score for task 1 writing will go down. All right? Next, is there more than one group being compared? For example, sometimes there are 3 different countries being compared in one chart. You need to make note of this. Next, does it show change over time? Okay, do we have time, or are there multiple charts? This is very common in IELTS, so you need to be careful to notice if it shows change over time. Next, what are the time periods shown? If it does show change over time, what are the time periods? Is it in the past? Is it the present? Is it the future? Why is this important? Because if it's in the past, then you need to use past tense for your grammar. If it's in the future, well, you're going to use different grammar than if it were only in the past. Different sentence structures and different verb tenses. All right, next, what is the general trend? So overall, you look at the graph, the chart. Do you see it increasing? Do you see it decreasing, or something else? Did it go up and then peak and then go back down? You need to notice what the general trends are. Are there any large differences between groups or charts? Number 7, so if there are multiple groups, for example, 3 different countries, are there any big differences between these 3 different countries? If it's a chart and you have multiple charts, maybe you have a pie chart like on the top right, and you have a line graph, maybe you have 2 for one question. What are the big differences, and what do these different graphs or charts show you? And number 8, are there any groups or charts that share similarities? So we looked at differences in number 7. Next, we're looking at similarities. What is very similar? What is almost the same in these different groups or charts. And finally, number 9, how can I break it into 2 parts? Okay, when I'm writing Task 1 reports, I try to write with 4 paragraphs. I have my introduction, my overview, and then 2 body paragraphs because this is very logical for me and it makes it easy to organize. So when I look at a graph, when I look at the data that the IELTS task gives me, I try to break it into 2 parts. This is very easy if you have 2 different charts, but it can be more difficult if you only have 1 chart. So think about it. Can you break it logically into 2 parts? Sometimes the answer is no, but usually, more often than not, the answer is yes. Okay, so these are the 9 questions you can ask yourself to analyze charts. Let's look at an example next. In this chart analysis example, we have the chart on the right side. We don't have the question. We don't need the question. We're just going to look at the chart, and we're going to go through each of the questions on here. Number 1, what kind of data is being shown? And so this is a bar chart. We're going to look at the axes here. On the y-axis, which is on the left, the up and down line, we have men and women in further education and in the thousands. Okay, we want to make sure we don't mess up this either. So it will be 100,000, 200,000, and so on and so forth. And then in the x-axis, or on the x-axis down below, we have years. And we have 1970 and 1971. This is very interesting, and I don't know if it's easy to understand or not, but if we look down below, this is about education, right? Education usually has school years. So this first one, 1970 to 1971, this is the 1970-1971 school year, or you could just say the 1970 school year. Very important to notice. What are the units of measurement? Okay, so we have men and women. I think the unit of measurement, we have people, so it's the amount of people, and it's in thousands, right? Is there more than one group being compared? What do you think? Well, yes, there is more than one group being compared. In fact, we have a combination of different groups. On the left side of the chart, we have males. On the right side of the chart, we have females. And in the black is full-time education, and in the gray is part-time education. So many different groups that are going on here. Very interesting. Does it show change over time? Well, absolutely. The x-axis shows years. 1970 school year, 1980 school year, and 1990 school year. So there's definitely change over time. What are the time periods shown? Do we have anything in the present or future? I don't think so. It's 1970, 1980, 1990. This is all in the past. What is the general trend? Okay, well, we have quite a few general trends here, but there are a few that I see. First is full-time education increased from the beginning to the end. Next, female enrollments increased tremendously and they overtook males. What else can we see here? Part-time education as a whole is maybe about the same if you look in 1990 at males and females. It's pretty close, maybe too close to write about as a general trend. All right, so those are some of the general trends. I'm sure there are more. Number 7, are there any large differences between groups or charts? Wow, okay. How about full-time education versus part-time education? Huge difference, right? Part-time education is much more popular from the beginning until the end. But we do have some other interesting differences. Females increased the entire time, whereas males decreased before recovering slightly. Okay, so those are some differences. Are there any similarities? Well, let's look at full-time education for both males and females, the black ones. These both increased each year, right? So this is a similarity that we share. And you can also say for females in both full-time education and part-time education, they increased over all 3 years. And then finally, how can I break it into 2 parts? Well, there are lots of options here. You could do one part about full-time education and one part about part-time education, or you could do one part about males and the other part about females. It's up to you and what you think is easiest to break down for the 2 paragraphs. Next, let's look at maps. Map questions are pretty difficult. They're rare. They come out. Usually my students are upset when they get a map question, but let's be prepared for these map questions. Question number 1, is there more than one map being compared? Usually the answer is yes, but it's important to notice. All right, what are the time periods shown? Past, present, future? Like we talked about before, the time periods can change the language that you use. And are they in different maps or are they in the same map? The different time periods. Number 3, what are the most noticeable differences between the multiple maps or time periods? What are the biggest differences? Number 4, what parts of the map are the same in both maps and time periods? And number 5, can the map or maps be easily broken into 2 parts, and how? All right, interesting stuff. Let's look at an example map. Number 1, is there more than one map being compared? Well, yes, there are 2 maps. We can see the before and after here on the right side. Next, number 2, what are the time periods shown? Well, we have before and we have after, but we don't know. Is this the past, the present, or the future? And then are they in different maps or the same map? Well, here they're on different maps. Number 3, what are the most noticeable differences between the multiple maps or time periods? Wow, there are quite a few differences. Well, we see that there's been a lot of development in the second map, right? There's accommodation, now there's a pier, there are boats that travel to this island, so people have started to live on the island. There's a restaurant, there's a swimming area out on the left. Number 4, what parts of the map are the same in both? Well, interesting. What is the same here? Well, the geography of the map overall is very similar, right? Not much has changed in terms of the shape of the island. The beach is still in the same area. The island is still the same shape. There's nothing new there. And other than that, everything else looks different. I suppose the trees are the same, but I'm not sure if the trees are actual features or just decoration in the map. And then number 5, can the map be easily broken into 2 parts? How? This is quite an interesting question. Can it be easily broken into 2 parts? Well, if I were writing this, how would I break it down into 2 parts? You could write one about the different buildings that have been built and also about the transport networks that have been made, the footpath and vehicle path. We can see this legend down here on the bottom right where it says footpath and vehicle track. And so that's an important feature of this map. We don't want to skip that. So it might be valuable to write about this vehicle track and footpath and where they lead to in one paragraph, and about the different places, the restaurant and reception and accommodation and swimming area, and perhaps the boats and piers in another paragraph. I would probably write about the buildings in the first paragraph and then the footpath and vehicle track in the second paragraph. And that's just one way to do this. If you can't think of a way to break down the map into 2 parts, then that's okay. You can just write one big body paragraph, but it will be a little bit more difficult to organize. All right, that's for the map analysis example. Next, process diagrams. Oh man, everybody's favorite. Process diagram analysis question list. Number 1, where is the start of the process? And where's the end? Number 2, how many total stages are there? Number 3, what kind of process is it? Is it a cycle or a linear process? Linear means start to finish. So a cycle, the beginning and the end are basically the same. It just continues on and on and on. And a linear has a beginning and then has an end. And they're not connected. Number 4, what does each stage do? And what is its connection with the previous stage? And number 5, what is the end result? Is something produced? Finally, number 6, can the process be easily broken into 2 parts? How? Yes, I really like this last question, and I know it's in all of my question lists because it makes task 1 easier to write for me. All right, and the example for the process diagram. Number 1, where's the start of the process and the end? Let's look at this process diagram. We actually have 2. On the left, we have cement production, and on the right, we have concrete production. All right, so we're making two different types of things. Very interesting. But let's look at this left one first. Okay, in the beginning, we have the top. So it starts at the top and it finishes at the bottom. Some process diagrams go from right to left, others go from top to bottom. And on the right, I think we're also going from top to bottom, but we just have these different ingredients that are going into the concrete mixer and mixing them. So it looks like there are only perhaps 2 steps. We don't know the order on the right one. Which brings us to question number 2. How many total stages are there? For concrete production, it's not very clear. And even for cement production, we don't know exactly how many stages there are. But I'd say for concrete production, on the right, we have perhaps 2 stages, 2 easy stages to write about. One is adding all the ingredients, and the other is the concrete being mixed, so the ingredients being mixed together. And cement production, well, we have the limestone and clay go through the crusher. They're made into powder and then go into the mixer, where they're passed on to the rotating heater, which blows heat into it. Then they're moved to the grinder, which puts them into cement and then into bags. So I'm not counting right now, but you can count how many or make a tally of how many processes. It's not super important that you know how many stages there are, but if it's very clear, then perhaps you can write how many stages there are. And if anything, it helps you move and understand the process a little bit better. Number 3, what kind of process is it? Is it a cycle or a linear process? Well, I think both of these are linear processes. We have the cement production and then we have the concrete production. And we don't finish with the original things again. We finish with a different product. So it's a linear start to finish process. Number 4, what does each stage do? I just talked about that for both cement and concrete, so I won't go back through it again, but it's very important to note the connection with the previous stage as well. How does it get to that part? Number 5, what is the end result? Is something produced? Ooh, yes, we have bags of cement in the cement production, and we have concrete in the concrete production one. So we definitely have something produced here. And number 6, can the process be easily broken into 2 parts? How? Well, what a nice example. We have 2 different process diagrams, so this is quite easy to break up into 2 parts. All right, did you get that? Fantastic. Your action step for today is to find 5 Task 1 writing questions and do the analysis for each of them. Just do the analysis questions. All right, you don't need to write the report. You can if you want, but you don't need to write the report for every question, but do the analysis. Practice your analysis. Once you become comfortable using the question list, try to use it a bit less each time until you don't need it anymore, until it's so easy for you to analyze it that you don't need to read through each of these questions, but you can be confident you're not missing any information. Great job. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I hope this video was useful for you. For more IELTS lessons, please subscribe to our IELTS Master YouTube channel. You can find us at youtube.com/IELTSmaster or IELTS-master.com. Check out some more videos on the right side. Thanks so much.